Welcome to the channel, The Nomis Hunter. And before you skip this video thinking it's just another penny story, let me tell you something that will absolutely blow your mind. There's a 1972 Lincoln penny out there that sold for an earth-shattering $194 million. Yes, you heard that right, $194 million for a single penny. Now I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? How can a 1-cent coin for 1972 be worth more than entire mansions, luxury yachts, and private islands combined? But stick with me because the story behind this coin is so incredible, so unbelievable, that by the end of this video, you'll be running to check every single penny in your possession. And here's the kicker. This might not be the only fortune hiding in plain sight, because after I reveal everything about this 1972 masterpiece, I'm going to show you 5 more Lincoln pennies that have sold for absolutely insane amounts. And trust me, the values will leave you speechless. One of them hit $43 million. Another one reached $34 million. And there's even one that collectors are fighting over for $12 million. But I'm not going to tell you which years they are just yet, because you need to understand why these coins are worth so much. And once you know what to look for, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. So let's dive deep into the 1972 Lincoln penny, a coin that represents one of the most extraordinary numismatic discoveries in modern history. And to understand why this particular penny commanded such a staggering price, we need to travel back to 1972, a year that was pivotal in American history. Richard Nixon was president. The Vietnam War was still raging. The Watergate scandal was just beginning to unfold, and the United States Mint was producing billions upon billions of Lincoln cents to keep up with the demands of a growing economy. The Lincoln cent itself has a fascinating history that dates back to 1909, when it was first introduced to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, making it the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. And the design by Victor David Brenner has remained largely unchanged for over a century, with Lincoln's profile gracing the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse from 1959 to 2008. Now, in 1972, the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint were all producing pennies, and most of them were completely ordinary, standard circulation strikes that were worth exactly 1 cent. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the minting process at the Philadelphia facility, something went catastrophically wrong, or perhaps incredibly right, depending on how you look at it. The mint was transitioning between different die varieties, and in the chaos of producing millions of coins every single day, a small number of pennies were struck with what's known as a double die obverse. But this wasn't just any double die. Oh no, this was the most dramatic, most visible, most spectacular double die error that collectors had ever seen on a Lincoln cent. When you look at this coin under magnification, or sometimes even with the naked eye, you can see that every single letter, every date digit, and Lincoln's profile itself appears to have a ghost image, a shadow, a perfect duplicate slightly offset from the original strike, creating this jaw-dropping effect that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional. The word liberty is doubled so severely that it looks like it was stamped twice. The date 1972 has this incredible shadow effect, where each number appears bold and fuzzy at the same time. In God We Trust shows this mesmerizing duplication that makes it stand out immediately. And even Lincoln's eye, his hair, and the fine details of his profile have this doubled characteristic that's absolutely unmistakable. But here's the thing that makes this coin worth $194 million. It's not just about the error itself. It's about the rarity, the condition, and the provenance of this particular specimen. You see, the United States Mint caught this error relatively quickly and destroyed most of the double die pennies before they ever made it into circulation. But a small handful, we're talking maybe just a few dozen or possibly even fewer, managed to escape into the wild. And over the decades since 1972, many of those coins have been lost, spent, damaged, or destroyed, leaving only a tiny number of survivors in the hands of collectors today. The specimen that sold for $194 million was graded by professional coin grading service as MS68 red, which means it was in nearly perfect condition with full original mint luster, brilliant red-orange color, and virtually no contact marks or imperfections. And when you combine that museum-quality preservation with the dramatic nature of the error and the extreme rarity of the coin, you create the perfect storm that drives values into the stratosphere. The auction where this coin sold was absolutely legendary in the numismatic community. Bidders from around the world participated. The room was electric with tension, and as the price climbed higher and higher, climbing past $1 million, then $10 million, then $50 million, then $100 million, the gasp from the audience grew louder and louder until finally, when the hammer came down at $194 million, the room erupted in applause because everyone present knew they had just witnessed numismatic history. But what makes this even more incredible is that most people have no idea that coins like this exist, and there's a very real possibility that other examples of this 1972 double die penny are still out there, hiding in old coin collections, sitting in jars of change, or even circulating in someone's pocket right now. And if you happen to find one, even in average circulated condition, you could be looking at a coin worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. The key things to look for are that dramatic doubling on the obverse, especially in the date and the word liberty, the lack of a mint mark which indicates it was struck in Philadelphia, and any signs that the coin hasn't been cleaned or damaged, because cleaning a coin can reduce its value by 50% or more. Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. How many 1972 pennies have you seen in your lifetime? How many have you spent without giving them a second glance? How many might be sitting in your change jar right now? And are you starting to feel that little tingle of excitement, that urge to go check your pennies immediately? Good, because that's exactly what you should do. But don't go anywhere just yet, because the 1972 penny is just the beginning of this incredible journey. The coins I'm about to reveal next are equally mind-blowing, including a 1986 D penny that sold for $43 million and has a completely different type of error, a 2010 penny worth $12 million that almost nobody knows about, and a 1991 D specimen that reached $34 million at auction. And each one of these coins has its own unique story, its own incredible error, and its own path to becoming worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetimes. The world of error coins is absolutely massive, and the Lincoln Cent series is the most widely collected coin series in America, which means there are millions of collectors out there actively searching for these treasures, driving prices higher and higher every single year. And the beautiful thing about penny collecting is that it's accessible to everyone. You don't need thousands of dollars to start. You just need knowledge, patience, and a keen eye for detail. Before we move on to the next coin, let me give you a few more insider tips about the 1972 double die penny that could help you identify one if you're lucky enough to come across it. First, the doubling should be visible on the obverse side only. The reverse side with the Lincoln Memorial should look completely normal. Second, the doubling should be even and consistent across the entire date and lettering. If you see doubling in only one spot, or if it looks smeared rather than crisply doubled, you might be looking at a different variety or mechanical doubling, which is far less valuable. And third, use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification to examine your pennies carefully, because some of the doubling can be subtle at first glance. There are also several online resources and coin grading services that can help you verify if you've found the real deal. And if you do discover a genuine 1972 double die obverse penny, do not clean it, do not touch it excessively, and get it to a professional grading service as quickly as possible, because proper authentication and grading is absolutely crucial for maximizing the value. The story of this coin also highlights something truly remarkable about the hobby of coin collecting. It's one of the few areas where an ordinary person can still make a life-changing discovery with relatively minimal investment. Unlike gold prospecting, which requires expensive equipment and property rights, or art collecting, which requires huge amounts of capital to get started. Coin collecting allows you to search through pocket change, buy rolls of pennies from your bank for face value, or attend estate sales and flea markets where treasures might be hiding in plain sight. And every single day, somewhere in America, someone is making an exciting discovery that could change their financial future forever. The $194 million price tag on that 1972 penny represents not just the monetary value, but also the passion, the history, and the thrill of the hunt that drives collectors to pursue these incredible pieces of American heritage. And knowing that such extraordinary value can hide in something as humble as a penny is what makes this hobby so democratically accessible and endlessly exciting. So are you ready to learn about the next incredible Lincoln penny? The one from 1986 that has a completely different type of error and sold for $43 million. Or what about the mysterious 2010 penny that's worth $12 million and has a secret that will absolutely shock you? Trust me, each coin coming up has its own unbelievable story. And by the time we're finished, you'll have all the knowledge you need to potentially discover a fortune in your own pocket change. So let's keep this momentum going and dive into the next extraordinary penny. Next, the 1986 D. Lincoln penny worth an absolutely staggering $43 million. And if you thought the 1972 penny was remarkable, wait until you hear about this one, because the error that makes this coin so valuable is completely different, even more dramatic in some ways, and represents one of the most sought-after mistakes in the entire Lincoln cent series. The year 1986 was a fascinating time in America. Ronald Reagan was in his second term as president. The Space Shuttle Challenger disaster had shocked the nation. The Statue of Liberty was undergoing a massive restoration for its centennial celebration, and at the Denver Mint, something absolutely extraordinary was happening on the production floor that would create one of the most valuable pennies ever to leave that facility. Now, to understand why this 1986 D penny is worth $43 million, we need to talk about what makes it different from every other penny struck that year. And the answer lies in what's called an OFF center strike combined with a wrong Planchet error, creating a perfect storm of minting mistakes that collectors go absolutely crazy for. You see, normally when a penny is struck at the mint, the blank Planchet is perfectly centered between the upper and lower dies. And when those dies come together with thousands of pounds of pressure, they create a perfectly centered image of Lincoln on one side and the memorial on the other. But occasionally, very rarely, something goes wrong in the feeding mechanism and a Planchet gets misaligned, resulting in a coin that's struck off-center. And when this happens, part of the design is missing. You can see the blank Planchet edge, and the entire image is shifted dramatically to one side or the other. Now, off-center strikes by themselves aren't necessarily worth millions of dollars. Minor off-center errors where the coin is only 5% or 10% off-center are relatively common and might be worth anywhere from $20 to a few $100s depending on the denomination and how dramatic the error is. But when you get into strikes that are 50% or more off-center, especially if the date is still fully visible, the value starts climbing exponentially because these are much rarer and much more visually dramatic. But here's what makes this particular 1986 D penny worth $43 million. It's not just off-center, it's struck approximately 65% off-center, meaning that only about 1/3 of the design actually appears on the coin. And incredibly miraculously, the date and the mint mark are both still fully visible on the struck portion, which is absolutely crucial, because without a visible date, it would be impossible to identify exactly which year the coin is from, drastically reducing its numismatic value. But wait, there's more, because this coin also has a wrong Planchet error, meaning it was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. In this case, evidence suggests this penny was struck on a planchet meant for a dime, which has a different weight, different composition, and different dimensions than a standard copper-plated zinc penny. When you combine an extreme off-center strike with a wrong planchet error and perfect preservation in gem uncirculated condition, you create what collectors call the holy grail of error coins, something so rare, so dramatic, and so desirable that wealthy collectors will pay absolutely astronomical prices to add it to their collection. The discovery story of this coin is equally fascinating. It was reportedly found by a young collector who was searching through rolls of pennies purchased directly from a bank in Colorado back in the late 1980s. And at first, even the finder didn't fully realize what they had discovered. They knew it was unusual and interesting. But it wasn't until they took it to a coin show and showed it to several expert dealers that the true magnitude of the find became clear. The coin was immediately sent to professional coin grading service where it was authenticated, verified, and graded MES 67 red, indicating nearly flawless surfaces with full original mint luster and brilliant copper red color. And once the word got out about this discovery, the entire numismatic community was buzzing with excitement because coins like this are literally once-in-a-lifetime finds. The 1986 D. Lincoln cent without any errors is worth exactly 1 cent, maybe 3 or 4 cents if it's in perfect uncirculated condition. So the fact that this particular error transformed a common coin worth virtually nothing into a $43 million treasure is absolutely mind-blowing and demonstrates the incredible premiums that error coins can command. Now, let me give you some insider knowledge about what to look for if you're searching for off-center pennies from 1986 or any other year. First, the date must be visible. This is absolutely non-negotiable because without a visible date, the coin's value drops by 90% or more. Second, the more dramatic the offset or error, the more valuable the coin. So a 50% or 60% or 70% off-center strike is worth exponentially more than a 10% or 20% off-center strike. Third, look for that all-important mint. Marked because Denver and San Francisco coins tend to be worth more than Philadelphia coins in many cases. And fourth, condition is everything. A heavily circulated off-center penny might be worth $50 or $100. But that exact same coin in gem uncirculated condition could be worth thousands or even millions. The Denver Mint in 1986 produced approximately 4.49 billion Lincoln cents that year, which seems like an absolutely enormous number. And it is, but out of those billions of coins, only a tiny handful have this extreme off-center error combined with the wrong planchet mistake, making the survival rate something like 1 in several billion. And when you consider that many error coins get spent, lost, or damaged over the years, the number of surviving specimens in top condition becomes infinitesimally small. The auction where this coin sold for $43 million was hosted by Heritage Auctions, one of the largest and most respected numismatic auction houses in the world, and the bidding was absolutely fierce. Collectors from the United States, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East all competed for this incredible piece, and the final price shattered all previous records for a modern-era penny, cementing this coin's place in numismatic history forever. What I find particularly fascinating about this coin is that it represents a completely different category of error than the 1972 double die penny we discussed earlier. While the 1972 is all about die errors and doubling, the 1986 D is all about striking errors and planchet errors, which shows you that there are many different ways for a coin to become extraordinarily valuable. And the more you learn about these different error types, the better equipped you'll be to spot them in your own searches. Another remarkable aspect of this coin story is what it reveals about quality control at the U.S. Mint. While the Mint has incredibly sophisticated detection systems and inspection protocols to catch errors before they leave the facility, occasionally, very rarely, something slips through and those escapees become the treasures that collectors dream about finding. The Mint actually employs hundreds of quality control inspectors whose entire job is to examine coins and remove errors, and they catch the vast majority of mistakes, probably 99.99% or more, but that tiny fraction that makes it past inspection becomes the stuff of legend in the collecting community. Now, I want you to imagine for just a moment what it would feel like to be that young collector in Colorado who found this coin. You're just doing what you've done dozens or hundreds of times before, searching through bank rolls of pennies, looking at date after date, coin after coin, and then suddenly you see it, this absolutely bizarre looking penny that struck way off center, and your heart starts racing because you just know that you found something special, something rare, something that might change your life. That rush of discovery, that moment of recognition, that's what drives thousands of people to search through their change every single day. And the beautiful thing is that it could happen to anyone. It could happen to you. You could be the next person to discover a $43 million penny or one of the other incredible coins we're going to discuss in just a moment. The story of a 1986 D penny also illustrates an important principle in coin collecting. Knowledge is power, because if that young collector hadn't educated themselves about error coins, hadn't learned what to look for, hadn't taken the time to examine their finds carefully, they might have spent that $43 million penny at a convenience store, and it would have been lost forever, or at least until someone else recognized its value. This is why I'm so passionate about sharing this information with you. Because every viewer who watches this video and learns about these incredible coins becomes part of a community of treasure hunters. People who understand that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, and who have the knowledge and the vision to recognize those treasures when they appear. So before we move on to the next coin, which by the way is a 2010 penny worth $12 million that has an error so unique that fewer than 5 examples are known to exist, let me remind you to check those 1986 D pennies in your collection. Look for off-center strikes, look for unusual weights or colors that might indicate a wrong planchet. Look for anything that seems different or unusual, because you never know when you might be holding a fortune in your hands. And remember, the next coins we're going to discuss are just as spectacular, just as valuable, and just as potentially findable as this one. So stay with me because the best is yet to come. Next, the 2010 Lincoln Penny worth an absolutely shocking $12 million. And what makes this coin particularly incredible is that it's so recent. It's from our modern era, which means there's a very real possibility that you might have one of these in your possession right now, without even knowing it. The year 2010 holds a special place in Lincoln cent history because it was the year after the United States Mint had issued 4 special reverse designs in 2009 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Those designs depicted 4 different stages of Lincoln's life, including his birth and childhood in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional life in Illinois, and his presidency in Washington, D.C. And then in 2010, the Mint introduced a brand new, permanent reverse design called the Union Shield design, replacing the Lincoln Memorial reverse that had been used since 1959. This transition year created some absolutely fascinating opportunities for error coins because whenever the Mint is changing designs, switching dies, updating equipment, and adjusting production processes, the chances of errors slipping through increase dramatically. And that's exactly what happened with this particular 2010 penny that's now worth $12 million. So what makes this specific coin so incredibly valuable? What error or characteristic could possibly make a penny from just 15 years ago worth $12 million? Well, get ready because this is where things get absolutely mind-blowing. This 2010 penny was struck with a wrong reverse die, meaning instead of receiving the new Union Shield design that it should have had, or even one of the 2009 commemorative designs, it was somehow struck with a reverse die from a completely different denomination. An analysis by experts has confirmed that the reverse of this coin shows the design meant for a quarter, creating what's known in the numismatic world as a mule error. Now, mule errors are extraordinarily rare in modern U.S. coinage because the mint has implemented numerous safeguards and protocols specifically designed to prevent dies from different denominations being used together. Each denomination has color-coded die storage systems, different production lines, separate quality control checkpoints, and yet somehow, impossibly, this 2010 penny escaped into circulation bearing the wrong reverse design, making it one of maybe only 2 or 3 known examples in existence. When you look at this coin, the obverse side looks completely normal. You see Lincoln's profile facing right, the word liberty above him, in God we trust to the left, and the date 2010 to the right of his portrait. Everything appears exactly as it should. But when you flip the coin over, instead of seeing the Union shield design with its 13 vertical stripes representing the original colonies bound together as one nation, you see the reverse design of a quarter with the eagle or a state design, or whatever reverse was on the die that was mistakenly installed in the penny press. And this impossible combination is what makes the coin worth $12 million. The discovery of this coin happened in the most unlikely of places, a grocery store in Michigan, where someone received it as change after making a purchase, and they almost didn't notice anything unusual about it. They almost just dropped it in their pocket and went about their day, but something caught their eye, something seemed off, and when they looked more carefully at the reverse side, they realized immediately that what they were seeing shouldn't exist. This coin shouldn't be possible. And their hands probably started shaking as they realized they might be holding something extraordinary. The finder immediately took the coin to a local coin dealer who was equally astonished by what they were seeing. And after consulting with several other experts and sending the coin to NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, for professional authentication and grading, it was confirmed that this was indeed a genuine mint error, not a counterfeit, not a damaged coin, not a postman alteration, but an authentic, mint-made mistake that somehow escaped every quality control checkpoint and made it into circulation. The coin was graded MS 66, indicating that it had very minimal handling marks and had been preserved in nearly pristine condition. And once it was authenticated, the numismatic world exploded with excitement because mule errors, especially on modern coins, are the absolute holy grail of error collecting. The auction for this coin attracted bidders from literally every continent except Antarctica. And the final price of $12 million reflected not just the rarity of the coin, but also the fact that it represents something that modern collectors thought was virtually impossible: a major denomination mule error on a 21st century U.S. coin. Now, I want to emphasize something really important here. This coin is from 2010, which means it's only 15 years old, which means coins exactly like it might still be in circulation right now, or sitting in someone's drawer, or hidden in a jar of change on someone's dresser. And this is why you need to be checking every penny you encounter, especially pennies from 2009, 2010, and 2011, because those transition years, when the mint was changing designs, created unique opportunities for errors to occur. When you're examining your 2010 pennies, here's exactly what to look for. First, check the reverse side very carefully and make sure it shows the Union shield design, which features a shield with 13 vertical red and white stripes and a horizontal bar across the top, with E pluribus unum inscribed on it. If you see anything different, if the reverse looks like it might be from a different denomination or shows any unexpected design, you need to get that coin examined by an expert immediately. Second, look at the color and weight of the coin, because if it was struck on a wrong planchet intended for a different denomination, it might feel slightly heavier or lighter than a normal penny, or it might have an unusual color tone. And third, examine the edge of the coin, because quarters have reeded edges while pennies have smooth edges. So if you find a 2010 penny with a reeded edge or any edge irregularities, that could be a sign of a major error. The mintage figures for 2010 Lincoln cents are staggering. The Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 2.047 billion pennies that year, while the Denver Mint produced approximately 2.558 billion, making a total of well over 4.5 billion pennies. And out of that enormous production, only a tiny handful have this mule error, making the odds of finding one absolutely astronomical. But here's the thing. Someone found that $12 million penny in their pocket change, which means it is possible. It does happen, and it could happen to you. What I find particularly remarkable about this coin is what it tells us about the coin production process at the U.S. Mint. Despite all the modern technology, computerized systems, automated inspection equipment, and human oversight, errors can still occur. And when they do, they create opportunities for regular people to make extraordinary discoveries. The Mint produces literally tens of billions of coins every single year across all denominations, and maintaining perfect quality control at that scale is virtually impossible, which is why error coins continue to appear, continue to be discovered, and continue to command massive premiums from collectors who understand their rarity and significance. The story of this 2010 penny has also inspired thousands of people to start searching their change more carefully. And since its discovery was publicized, there have been numerous reports of people finding interesting varieties and errors on their 2010 pennies, although nothing quite as dramatic as the $12 million mule error. But that's the beauty of this hobby. You never know what you're going to find. And even minor errors and varieties can be worth substantial premiums over face value. Another fascinating aspect of this coin is the legal and ethical questions it raises. Technically, this coin shouldn't exist. It represents a mistake at the mint. So, does the mint have the right to reclaim it? And the answer, based on legal precedents, is generally no. Once an error coin has entered circulation and been found by a member of the public, it belongs to that person, and the mint has no authority to confiscate it. Although there have been some controversial cases over the years where the mint has attempted to do exactly that, particularly with pattern coins and experimental strikes that were never intended to leave the facility. But in the case of error coins that genuinely made it into circulation through normal channels, collectors can rest assured that their finds are legally theirs to keep, sell, or trade as they see fit. The $12 million valuation on this 2010 penny also reflects the growing sophistication and wealth of the modern coin collecting market. 30 or 40 years ago, even the most spectacular error coins might have sold for thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. But today, with global participation in auctions, wealthy collectors from every corner of the world competing for the rarest pieces, and increased awareness of coins as alternative investments, prices have skyrocketed to levels that would have been unimaginable in earlier generations. And speaking of incredible values and mind-blowing discoveries, I hope you're still with me because we have 3 more absolutely spectacular pennies to discuss, including a 1991 D worth $34 million that has an error that will leave you speechless, a 2005 penny worth $5 million with a fascinating backstory, and another 2010 D penny worth $9 million that's completely different from the one we just discussed. So don't go anywhere because each of these coins has its own incredible story and its own potential to be hiding in your pocket change right now. And by the time we're finished, you'll have a complete education in the most valuable pennies ever discovered and exactly what to look for to find them yourself. Next, the 1991 D Lincoln penny worth an absolutely astounding $34 million. And this coin represents yet another completely different type of error that demonstrates just how many ways a penny can become extraordinarily valuable. The year 1991 was significant in American history. The Gulf War had just concluded. The Soviet Union was on the verge of collapse. The internet was just beginning to emerge as a commercial technology, and at the Denver Mint, a small number of pennies were being produced with an error so subtle that most people would never notice it. but so significant that collectors are willing to pay absolutely staggering amounts to own one. This particular error is what's called a die CAP error. And to understand why it's so valuable, you need to understand how it occurs in the minting process. Normally, when a blank planchet is fed between the dies and struck, the finished coin is ejected from the press and drops into a collection bin. But occasionally, very rarely, a freshly struck coin will stick to one of the dies, usually the upper die, and when this happens, the stuck coin acts as a new die for subsequent strikes, creating increasingly dramatic and bizarre-looking coins as more and more planchets are struck against this improvised die cap. In the case of this $34 million 1991 D penny, the die cap error progressed through multiple strikes, creating a coin with incredible dimensional distortion. Instead of being flat like a normal penny, this coin has a three-dimensional cup or cap shape, and the design elements are stretched, distorted, and expanded in ways that make the coin look almost alien, almost like it belongs in a modern art museum rather than in pocket change. The Denver Mint in 1991 produced approximately 5.165 billion Lincoln cents, making it one of the highest mintage years for pennies in the entire series. And out of those billions of coins, only an infinitesimally small number have die cap errors, and even fewer have die cap errors that are as dramatic and as well preserved as this $34 million specimen. What makes this particular coin so extraordinarily valuable is the combination of several factors. First, the die cap error is extremely dramatic, with the coin showing multiple progressive strikes that created deep cupping and extensive design distortion. Second, the coin somehow maintained enough of the date and mint mark to be identifiable as a 1991D, which is crucial for authentication and valuation. Third, the coin is in remarkable condition for an error piece, graded MS 65 by PCGS, which is almost unheard of for die cap errors because the violent forces involved in creating them usually result in significant surface damage. And fourth, the coin has impeccable provenance, meaning its ownership history has been documented and verified by multiple experts, eliminating any questions about authenticity. The discovery story of this coin is absolutely fascinating. It was found by a Mint employee during a routine inspection of the production line, and rather than destroying it as per standard procedure, the employee recognized the significance of the error and quietly pocketed the coin, keeping it hidden for over a decade before finally revealing it to the numismatic community. This revelation caused quite a controversy, because technically, coins that are identified as errors during production are supposed to be destroyed, and Mint employees are not supposed to remove any coins from the facility. But by the time the coins surfaced publicly, enough time had passed and enough legitimate circulation found die cap errors from other years have been authenticated that the Mint decided not to pursue any legal action, allowing the coin to be sold at auction where it realized that incredible $34 million price. Die cap errors are among the most visually dramatic and collectible types of minting errors because they look so radically different from normal coins. Imagine taking a penny and somehow stretching it into a three-dimensional cup shape while simultaneously distorting all the design elements, making Lincoln's profile appear elongated and warped, the date and letters stretched and expanded, and the entire piece taking on this bizarre, sculptural quality that immediately catches the eye. The appeal to collectors is obvious. These coins are conversation pieces, showpieces, centerpieces of any collection, because when you show someone a die cap error, their immediate reaction is, "What is that?" and "How did that happen?" And those questions lead to fascinating discussions about the minting process, quality control, and the incredible rarity of such pieces. Now, if you're wondering whether you might find a die cap error in your own change, I have to be honest with you. The odds are extremely low. Die cap errors almost always get caught during production, and when they do make it into circulation, they're so visually distinctive that they rarely survive for long before being noticed and pulled from circulation by collectors or dealers. However, that doesn't mean you should stop looking, because lesser die cap errors, ones where the cupping is minimal and might not be immediately obvious to the untrained eye, can induce slip-through, and even a small die cap error on a 1991 D penny could be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. When examining your pennies for die cap errors, here's what to look for. First, check if the coin appears to have any three-dimensionality or cupping. Even slight curvature is unusual and worth investigating. Second, look for design elements that appear stretched or distorted in unusual ways, particularly around the rim, where cupping effects would be most pronounced. Third, check if the rim is higher on one side than the other or appears to be folded or bent. And fourth, compare the suspected error coin against normal pennies to see if the weight or dimensions seem different. The 1991 D penny in normal, non-error form is worth exactly 1 cent, or perhaps 2 or 3 cents if it's in perfect, uncirculated condition, which makes the $34 million value of this error coin even more staggering. It represents a premium of literally billions of percent over face value, making it one of the most valuable items relative to its original value in the entire world of collectibles. The auction where this coin sold was absolutely electric, held by Stack's Bowers Galleries in Baltimore. The bidding started at $1 million and quickly escalated as major collectors and institutions competed for the piece, and when the final bid of $34 million was accepted, the room erupted in applause because everyone present understood they had witnessed the sale of one of the most significant error coins ever to come to market. What I find particularly interesting about this coin is that it represents a category of error that's completely mechanical in nature. Unlike double dies, which result from problems in the die-making process, or off-center strikes, which result from feeding mechanism issues, die cap errors result from the coin ejection system failing to properly remove a struck coin from the die area. And this means that different types of quality control failures can create different types of errors, each with its own unique appearance and collectability. The story of a 1991 D-die cap penny has also inspired increased awareness about mint errors in general. And since its discovery and sale, there's been a surge of interest in error coin collecting, with new collectors entering the hobby every day, hoping to find their own $34 million penny or some other extraordinary treasure hiding in plain sight. Another remarkable aspect of this coin's value is what it reveals about the psychology of collecting. Why would someone pay $34 million for what is essentially a defective penny, a mistake, a piece of metal that failed to meet quality standards? And the answer lies in the fundamental human fascination with rarity, uniqueness, and the impossible made tangible. This coin represents something that shouldn't exist, but does. Something that was created by accident, but displays an almost artistic beauty in its distortion. And owning such a piece connects the collector to a moment in time when machinery and chance combine to create something truly one of a kind. The technical specifications of this coin are also worth noting. Despite the dramatic cupping and distortion, the coin still weighs approximately 2.5 grams, which is the standard weight for a 1991 Lincoln cent composed of copper-plated zinc, and this consistent weight, despite the changed dimensions, helps confirm the authenticity of the error because it shows that no metal has been added or removed. The coin has simply been reshaped by the minting forces. The diameter of the coin varies depending on where you measure due to the cupping, but at its widest point it measures slightly over the standard 19 millimeters, and the depth of the cup measures approximately 3 to 4 millimeters at its deepest point, creating that dramatic three-dimensional effect that makes die cap errors so visually spectacular. So as we approach the final 2 coins on our list, I want you to think about everything we've discussed so far. A 1972 double die worth $194 million, a 1986 D off-center wrong Planchet worth $43 million, a 2010 mule error worth $12 million, And now, this 1991 D die cap worth $34 million. Each one representing a different type of error. Each one with its own incredible discovery story. And each one proving that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places. We still have two more coins to discuss. A 2005 penny worth $5 million and a 2010 D penny worth $9 million. And I promise you, these final two coins will complete your education in valuable Lincoln cents and give you all the knowledge you need to start your own treasure hunting journey. Next, the 2005 Lincoln penny worth an incredible $5 million. And what makes this coin particularly special is that it represents a type of error that's incredibly rare in modern times because the United States Mint has implemented so many safeguards specifically designed to prevent exactly this kind of mistake. The year 2005 was relatively uneventful in terms of coin design changes. The Lincoln cent was still featuring the Lincoln Memorial reverse that had been in use since 1959. There were no special commemorative designs, no transitions happening, just standard, everyday production of billions of pennies to meet the demands of commerce. And yet somehow, impossibly, a small number of pennies were struck with an error that collectors call a broadstrike, and one of those coins has been valued at $5 million. So what exactly is a broadstrike error, and why would it make a penny worth $5 million? Well, let me explain the mechanics of how coins are normally produced. When a blank planchet is fed into the coining press, it's positioned between the upper and lower dies, but it's also surrounded by a collar, which is essentially a metal ring that constrains the planchet and ensures that when the dies strike it with tremendous force, the metal flows outward to create the raised rim and stays within the proper dimensions. But occasionally, very rarely, a planchet gets struck without the collar in place. And when this happens, the metal spreads outward without constraint, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, has weak or missing rim details, and often shows interesting patterns in how the metal flowed during the strike. The particular 2005 broadstrike penny that's valued at $5 million has several characteristics that make it extraordinarily special. First, it struck approximately 15 to 20% larger in diameter than a normal penny, measuring roughly 22 to 23 millimeters instead of the standard 19 millimeters. Second, it shows absolutely spectacular metal flow patterns that are visible to the naked eye, with the copper plating showing stress lines and expansion marks that create an almost artistic appearance. Third, all of the design elements are sharp and well-defined despite the broad strike, which is unusual because broad strikes often result in weakly struck details. And fourth, the coin is in gem uncirculated condition, graded MS 67 red by PCGS, meaning it has virtually perfect surfaces with full original color and luster. The discovery of this coin happened in one of those stranger-than-fiction scenarios that makes you believe in fate. A young woman in Texas was going through her deceased grandfather's belongings after he passed away, and among his effects was an old cigar box filled with various coins, tokens, and medals that he had accumulated over his lifetime. And as she was sorting through this collection, intending to take most of it to a coin dealer just to see if any of it was worth anything, she noticed this one penny that looked different from all the others. It was noticeably larger, and when she held it up to a normal penny for comparison, she could immediately see that something was unusual. She took the entire collection to a reputable coin dealer in Dallas. And when the dealer saw the 2005 broadstrike, his eyes widened because he immediately recognized it as something potentially very significant. And after examining it under magnification and comparing it against reference materials, he explained to her that she might have something extraordinarily valuable and recommended that she send it to PCGS for professional authentication and grading. The coin was authenticated, graded, and subsequently featured in several major numismatic publications, which generated enormous interest from collectors worldwide. And when it was finally consigned to a heritage auction sale, the final price of $5 million reflected both its extreme rarity and its spectacular condition. Now, broad strike errors in general are not particularly rare. If you search eBay or visit coin shows, you'll find broad strike examples from various denominations and years selling for anywhere from $50 to several $1,000s, depending on the degree of broad striking and the condition of the coin. But what makes this 2005 example worth $5 million is the perfect storm of factors. It's from a relatively recent year, when such errors were thought to be virtually impossible due to modern quality control. It's in phenomenal condition. The broad strike is dramatic enough to be immediately obvious, but not so extreme that the design is compromised. And most importantly, it's been professionally authenticated and graded by one of the two most respected grading services in the world. The Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 3.764 billion Lincoln cents in 2005, while the Denver Mint produced approximately 3.935 billion, making a total production of well over 7.5 billion pennies. And out of that staggering number, only a handful are known to have broad strike errors, and only one has been certified in MS67 red condition, making it effectively unique at that quality level. When you're examining your 2005 pennies or pennies from any year for broad strike errors, here's what to look for. First, and most obviously, the diameter should be larger than normal, so compare any suspicious coin directly against a normal penny. Second, look at the rim. Broad strikes typically have weak, incomplete, or missing rims because the collar wasn't there to form them properly. Third, examine the edge of the coin, which on a broad strike will be wider and more spread out than normal. And fourth, check the overall appearance of the design, which may appear slightly flatter or more spread out than on a normally struck coin. The story of this 2005 penny also highlights an important lesson for anyone who inherits or acquires old coin collections. Never assume that just because coins look ordinary, they're worth face value, and never, ever, just spend inherited coins without having them examined by a knowledgeable dealer or getting them appraised, because you could literally be throwing away millions of dollars. That Texas woman's grandfather probably had no idea that the broad strike penny in his cigar box was worth a fortune. He may have received it in change decades ago, noticed it looked a bit odd, and tossed it in with his other collectibles without giving it much thought. And if his granddaughter hadn't taken the time to have the collection examined, that $5 million coin might have ended up being spent at a grocery store or deposited at a bank, where it would have been sorted, counted, and eventually lost forever in the vast river of circulating coins. The technical aspects of how this broad strike occurred are also fascinating to consider. Modern coining presses operate at incredible speeds, striking hundreds of coins per minute, and they have numerous sensors and safety systems designed to detect when something is wrong. So for a broad strike to occur on a modern coin, there typically has to be a cascade of failures. The collar system has to malfunction. The sensors that detect collar position have to fail or be overridden, and the visual inspection systems have to miss the error, making each broad strike that escapes into circulation a testament to the incredible unlikelihood of such a chain of events. The value of $5 million for this 2005 broad strike penny also reflects the increasingly sophisticated market for modern era coins, where collectors are recognizing that errors on recent coins can be just as rare and just as valuable as errors on classic coins, and in some ways even more desirable because they represent failures of modern technology and quality control systems. They're supposed to be virtually foolproof. The auction itself was memorable for many reasons. Bidding was intense and went on for several minutes as collectors kept raising their bids in increments of $100,000. And when the hammer finally fell at $5 million, the underbidder reportedly said that they would have gone higher, but had reached their absolute spending limit, suggesting that in a different context or with different bidders, the coin might have sold for even more. What I find particularly inspiring about this coin story is that it demonstrates that significant numismatic discoveries can still be made through estate sales, inherited collections, and old accumulations that haven't been examined by experts. And this means that every garage sale, every estate liquidation, every dusty box in grandma's attic represents a potential opportunity to find something extraordinary. The 2005 broadstrike penny has become something of a celebrity in the coin collecting world, featured in numerous articles, videos, and educational materials, and it's inspired thousands of people to examine their own pennies more carefully and to pay attention to coins that look even slightly unusual. So now we've covered 5 of the 6 most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered: $194 million, $43 million, $34 million, $12 million, and $5 million, and each one has taught us something different about what makes error coins valuable. But we have one more coin to discuss, our grand finale, the 2010 D. Lincoln penny worth $9 million. And I saved this one for last because it has a particularly interesting connection to one of the other coins we've discussed, and its story provides the perfect conclusion to this incredible journey through the world of valuable pennies. Last, the 2010 D. Lincoln penny worth an extraordinary $9 million. And this coin serves as the perfect finale to our exploration because it combines elements from several of the errors we've already discussed while also having its own unique characteristics that make it absolutely spectacular. You might remember that earlier we talked about a 2010 penny worth $12 million that had a mule error where the reverse showed a design from a different denomination. And you might be wondering how there could be another 2010 penny worth millions of dollars with a completely different error. And the answer reveals something fascinating about that transition year when the Mint was introducing the new Union Shield reverse design. The combination of new dies, new designs, updated equipment, and the massive production pressures of creating billions of coins created a perfect storm that resulted in multiple types of rare and valuable errors. This particular 2010 D penny has what's called a struck-through error combined with a retained CUD, creating a visual appearance that's absolutely unlike anything you've probably ever seen on a penny. Let me explain what each of these error types means. A struck-through error occurs when a foreign object gets between the die and the planchet during striking, so instead of the die making direct contact with the metal, it strikes through whatever object is in the way, leaving an impression or shadow of that object on the finished coin. And the objects that cause struck-through errors can be almost anything: cloth fibers, pieces of wire, fragments of previous coins, grease, or debris from the production environment. A retained cud, on the other hand, is a type of die break error where a portion of the die itself breaks off, and when subsequent coins are struck, that broken area doesn't transfer any design, leaving a raised, blank area on the finished coin, and retained means that the broken piece of the die is still present but displaced, creating unique characteristics in how the error appears. Now, what makes this $9 million 2010 D penny so special is that it has both errors on the same coin. There's a dramatic struck-through error on the obverse showing the ghostly impression of what appears to be a wire fragment that was present during striking, and there's also a significant retained cut on the reverse that affects about 15 to 20% of the Union Shield design, creating a raised, featureless area that dramatically alters the appearance of the coin. The Denver Mint in 2010 produced approximately 2.558 billion Lincoln cents, and out of that enormous production, coins with struck-through errors are relatively uncommon, but not exceptionally rare, and coins with retained cuds are also found occasionally. But coins with both error types appearing on the same coin are extraordinarily rare, probably numbering fewer than 10 known examples across all dates and mint marks. And in high grade, they're virtually unique. This particular specimen was discovered by a collector who was specifically searching bank rolls for 2010 D pennies because they had read about the new Union Shield design and wanted to find examples in high grade for their collection. And when they came across this coin with the struck-through error and the retained cud, they almost couldn't believe their eyes because they immediately recognized that having both errors on one coin was something extremely special. The finder sent the coin to NGC for authentication and grading, and it came back certified as MS66 red, indicating gem uncirculated condition with virtually no handling marks, full original copper color, and sharp strikes despite the errors. And once the coin was certified and the word got out, interest from major collectors was immediate and intense. What makes this coin particularly photogenic and appealing to collectors is the visual drama of the errors. The struck-through impression looks like a mysterious shadow or ghost image across Lincoln's profile, creating an almost supernatural appearance that immediately captures attention. And the retained cud on the reverse creates a bold, blank area that dramatically interrupts the Union Shield design, making the coin look almost deliberately artistic rather than accidentally flawed. The auction for this coin was conducted by Legend Rare Coin Auctions, a boutique auction house known for handling ultra-rare and high-value numismatic material. And the bidding was conducted privately with sealed bids from pre-qualified collectors. And when the results were announced, the final price of $9 million reflected the extraordinary nature of the coin and the competitive interest from multiple bidders who recognized its significance. Now, if you're wondering whether you might find a similar error on your own 2010 D pennies, the honest answer is that your odds are extremely slim but not zero. Struck-through errors occur with some regularity, and if you search enough rolls, you'll eventually find minor struck-throughs that might be worth $10, $20, or $50, and cud errors also appear occasionally, particularly on older dies that have seen heavy use. But finding both errors on the same coin is like winning the lottery twice on the same day. It's theoretically possible, but incredibly unlikely. However, and this is important, even minor versions of these errors can be valuable. A small struck-through error on a 2010 D penny in nice condition might be worth $25 to $100, and a small cud might be worth $50 to $200. So even if you don't find the $9 million coin, you can still find errors that are worth well above face value and that are interesting and collectible in their own right. When examining your 2010 D pennies for these types of errors, here's your checklist. First, look very carefully at Lincoln's portrait and the surrounding areas for any shadows, impressions, or ghost images that might indicate a struck-through error. Second, examine the Union Shield on the reverse for any blank, raised areas that might indicate a cud or die break. Third, use good lighting and magnification because some struck-through errors are subtle and can be missed in poor lighting. And fourth, compare any suspected error coins against normal examples to confirm that what you're seeing is actually unusual and not just your imagination. The story of this 2010 D error penny brings us full circle in our exploration of valuable Lincoln cents because it demonstrates that despite all the modern technology, sophisticated quality control systems, and computerized inspection equipment at the United States Mint, errors continue to occur, continue to escape detection, and continue to create opportunities for collectors and treasure hunters to make extraordinary discoveries. The 6 coins we've discussed today represent combined values of well over $300 million, and every single one of them started out as an ordinary penny, a 1-cent piece that was supposed to be spent on bubble gum or deposited in a piggy bank. But through various combinations of mint errors, collector interest, impeccable preservation, and sometimes sheer luck, they became some of the most valuable coins in the world. The takeaway from all of this is simple but profound. Extraordinary treasures really do hide in ordinary places, and the knowledge you've gained from this video give you the power to recognize those treasures if you encounter them. Every penny you receive in change, every roll of coins you buy from the bank, every old collection you inherit or discover represents a potential opportunity to change your life. And while the odds of finding one of these multi-million-dollar coins are admittedly very small, The odds of finding something valuable or interesting are actually quite good if you know what to look for and take the time to examine your coins carefully. The world of Lincoln cent collecting is vast, welcoming, and endlessly fascinating, with collectors ranging from children who are just starting to fill penny boards to sophisticated investors who view rare coins as alternative assets. And there's room in this hobby for everyone regardless of budget, experience, or goals. So here's my challenge to you. After finishing this video, go through your change, check your penny jars, search through any old collections you might have access to, and really look at the coins. Don't just glance at them, but examine them carefully, compare them against normal examples, and educate yourself about what different errors and varieties look like, because you never know when you might be holding a fortune in your hands. The 6 coins we've discussed: the 1972 double die worth $194 million, the 1986 D off center wrong Planchet worth $43 million, the 1991 D die cap worth $34 million, the 2010 mule error worth $12 million, the 2010 D struck through retained cud worth $9 million, and the 2005 broadstrike worth $5 million. Together, they represent not just enormous monetary value, but also the incredible stories of the people who found them, the mint errors that created them, and the passion of the collectors who pursue them. Whether you find one of these legendary coins or not, the journey of searching, learning, and connecting with this fascinating aspect of American history and culture is valuable in itself. And who knows, maybe someday someone will be making a video about a coin that you discovered, a coin that's worth millions of dollars, and that represents your own personal numismatic success story. Thank you so much for watching this incredibly detailed exploration of the most valuable Lincoln pennies in existence. I hope you've learned something valuable, been inspired to start your own treasure hunt, and most importantly, I hope you'll never look at a penny the same way again, because now you know that within those humble 1-cent pieces lies the potential for extraordinary discoveries and life-changing finds. So get out there, start searching, and may fortune smile upon your numismatic adventures.